I think there's some awesome news as of right now when it comes to Onyx. And no, it's not the price, because of course, it's not doing that good when it comes to XCN. But when I take a look at it, even though nothing I say is financial advice, I think this could be so amazing in terms of, gaining XCN more attention. Let's say if the markets do really pick up again. Because in my previous video, I was talking about a poll that was going on, right, when it comes to Onyx regarding PancakeSwap and the BNB chain. And the one I was talking about in my previous video allegedly just got passed. It's through. And we got to think about this, right? Not too long ago, Onyx, they did put out a post on X, and it said that, again, the vote quite essentially to provide XCN liquidity for BNB chain, phase 1 has successfully passed and is now queued. Now again, allegedly, phase 1 will provide liquidity for the XCN/USDT pair on PancakeSwap. So this is very amazing because if we think about it, pretty much PancakeSwap is the number one go-to, decentralized exchange when it comes to things surrounding the BNB chain. Of course, when it comes to Ethereum, people think about Uniswap, and I get it, PancakeSwap is not bigger than that, at least in terms of the attention, but then I still think this is very massive nonetheless because, again, when we take a look at something like PancakeSwap, very established, a lot of fans, a lot of people believe in it, not to mention we have to take a look at, again, something like XCN, which I don't really think needed more attention, but I think this can't, be a bad thing at the end of the day because more attention, I don't see why it's such a bad thing. And let's not forget, when it comes to something like Onyx, people like to say, oh, it's not really doing much. Well, here's the thing. Things like this don't automatically just, make the price of XCN do this or do that because as of right now, when it comes to the sentiment, when it comes to altcoins, it's not doing the best. So it's not like it's a fully fledged type of bull run when the market is doing very amazing. It's a different case what would happen if that scenario was present right now, but then that's not the case. So I think this really, again, could really, I think, make a lot of attention for XCN if the markets do hypothetically pick up again. Because, again, PancakeSwap is very popular, and not to mention, I think Onyx is kind of setting the groundwork right now when things aren't necessarily doing the best, which I think is a smart move because many other projects out there, once the market is doing good, once things are really doing very amazing, then they start doing this, doing that, but it's a little bit too little too late. I like projects that kind of preemptively do this before things really take off. And it's not like XCN has done bad historically speaking. I mean, it's done pretty good despite the pullback. But still, the project, when I'm talking about Onyx here, they're still doing things, right? They're still building. They're still kind of pushing through. They're not just giving up. At least the vibe is like that to me. And I think despite what's going on with the price of XCN, I feel like Onyx is still doing amazing things behind the scenes, at least to my understanding, because we have to take a look at Goliath, which could maybe be this very amazing layer 1 blockchain for the world of finance. We'll have to wait and see when it comes to that, but again, they're aiming to launch the testnet in Q3 of this year. Will it happen in Q3 of this year? Who knows? The exact date, I have no idea, but at least they're planning to, not to mention they're planning to launch the mainnet in Q1 of next year. So I feel like they have a lot of good things kind of prepared for the future of Onyx. And it's not like necessarily Onyx is doing the most things, but we have to take a look at its competitors. Like, for instance, Zebic, also XPR, Swiftcoin. It's not like they have that much going on for them either. It's not like, they're doing 10 or 15 different things at once. When it comes to Onyx, it's not concerning to me that their kind of main focus is on Goliath. Because yes, I understand that there isn't necessarily a need for another layer 1 blockchain, but I do like at least they're trying to build something. They're trying to give the project more substance because when XCN first had that really good rally, I feel like Onyx didn't have much going on for it. I think that the major hype for XCN back then was primarily just because many people viewed it as an up-and-coming, watered-down version of XRP and XLM. I think that was pretty much it. Now that Onyx has more substance, so to speak, right, that it has more to kind of believe in, the price isn't doing good in terms of the pullback, right? From its, previous high. Of course, it's way better than before, but I'm just saying. And I think that, if anything, kind of showcases that when it comes to, let's say, the market's picking up again, if, let's say, it does happen, could you imagine the attention that Onyx could really, have potentially? Because if XCN was able to do that before without much to really kind of latch onto, imagine right now that we have more things going on when it comes to Onyx. I think maybe in theory, the run that we saw before could hypothetically be just a lot better this time around if, let's say, we do see a fully fledged type of altcoin season. But then this is just my perspective. And some people out there like to say, oh, the market's never going to recover and all this type of stuff. Well, let's take a look at just even Bitcoin in general. I mean, take a look at how many bear markets it's been through. It's always kind of made it eventually through those times, right? I'm not saying there's no pullbacks, but again, it's eventually kind of made it. Take a look at also the S&P 500. Sure, it's been through, its ups and downs, but in theory, we saw how eventually it does, at times recover. So I think it's kind of no different here. I'm not saying that when it comes to XCN, there is a large sample size like that because XCN hasn't been around for like that long. But then the way I view it is that at least based on other things I've seen, eventually things do hypothetically pick up again. So I'm not concerned when it comes to that. Here's the thing. Some people like to ask me, oh, what do we do if we keep checking our portfolio and all this type of stuff? Now, I can't tell anyone what to do, but personally for me, if let's say me taking a look at my portfolio is draining or whatever, then I don't have to look at it, right? Why would I do things that are emotionally draining for no reason? Like, of course, that's not something I would do. Instead, I just stay calm and you know what? Just stick with my strategy that I've been doing the entire time anyways. And that is just by believing in the projects that I believe in. Dollar cost averaging, holding and just waiting. Literally, that's it. The portfolio isn't like, something I have to focus every 5 minutes on. If it's draining, I just don't look at it. You know what I mean? And it's not like it's that bad because in theory, XCN did do pretty good ever since I started talking about it. But of course, there was a pullback, so I understand that feeling. But I'm just saying, like personally for me, I just focus on the journey in a sense that I treat this like a marathon. It's not a sprint for me because I cannot control when things are supposed to pump and all this. I can't do that. So if I understand that, I'll just control myself and just kind of control the things that are within my hypothetical control. And again, that is just anytime earned income, acquiring what I can, my favorite projects, and just holding. Literally, that's it. Anything else beyond that, I can't do, I'm not telling anyone to buy XCN, by the way, but this is just kind of my thought process when it comes to this. And I want to be bullish at a time when, generally speaking, the sentiment isn't the best because the way I take a look at it is that if let's say I'm only bullish when things are pumping, it wouldn't really make much sense because at that point things have already gone hypothetically up, right? So then what's the point there? I want to be bullish when things aren't doing the best. Not saying that I'm only paying attention when things aren't doing good, but I'm just saying, generally speaking, I don't want to just give up when things aren't necessarily, looking the best when it comes to the price charts. This is just my kind of perspective. But I'm going to still stay patient because I think we can learn some clues from history, even though it doesn't tell the future. There's no way to do that. At least I can't, right? But then, historically speaking, altcoins, they usually peak as a worst case scenario around 18 months after a Bitcoin halving event. Sure, we're, over a year removed from the last Bitcoin halving event, but we're not 18 months removed. I mean, 18 months from the last one would actually mean around October this year because the last one did happen in April of last year. But I'm just saying, even if let's say the market conditions were so amazing, even based off history, as of right now may not even be a time yet hypothetically when altcoins are supposed to peak as a worst case scenario anyways, so I don't see a reason for me to kind of just like give up. At least this is my perspective. And if we think about it, let's say XCN going to the price of 25 cents, it's around a 17x from here. Market cap considering current circulating supply would be around $8.5 billion. Keep in mind, Dogecoin years ago back in 2021 pretty much exceeded that market cap by around, 10 times. Take a look at XRP right now with a market cap well beyond $100 billion. I mean, if let's say there's a fully fledged type of altcoin season, it doesn't seem that ridiculous to me. But again, only time will tell. But again, it's not something outlandish, you know what I mean? At least in my perspective. Like if I'm saying, oh, XCN is going to overtake XRP, then that's crazy. I'm not going to be doing that. I mean, come on. That's not going to happen. XRP is always going to be bigger than XCN in my hypothetical opinion. But it doesn't mean that XCN can't maybe achieve a glimpse of that. This is what I'm just kind of having in my mind, at least in my perspective. Only time will tell though, but again, there's only one thing I can control. That is myself. And I'm going to still believe in Onyx and seeing good news when it comes to PancakeSwap and BNB Chain regarding Onyx, just generally speaking. That is something that is a big thumbs up for me. And I'm very excited for its future still, even though the price isn't doing the best. And feel free to subscribe if you enjoyed the video. I'd greatly appreciate it. It's been Lee the Captain, and I'll catch y'all on the next one. I'm out. Peace. Bye.